This newly updated Hunter Blade Barrage build is amazing. You're going to be running around in endgame PvE whilst under the recommended power level, completely melting everything with infinite melee abilities, buffed out weapons, crazy super damage with a really fast cooldown, and a lot more. You'll be getting both radiant and restoration effects whenever you want, all while having fun with the solo super, using the preferred setup of your choice. Now there are a few different ways you can use this build, and a few different options of exotics that you can use, which I will go over later in the video. Whether you want faster supers, better super damage, faster abilities, or whatever, you'll be able to achieve almost anything you want with this build, and this is one of the best damage and super ability builds in the game that you should be using in PvE activities where you have tanky bosses, champions, or a lot of ads you need to clear fast. So guys, be sure to leave a rating, comment, subscribe and share for more, and now let's throw some knives. Roll the intro. Now firstly, before we do start, if you do like these build videos and you want to see more like this, then be sure to check out the full playlist of new and updated builds down below, as I do cover them weekly here on the channel. And if you do have a build that you want to share with people, I do have a Discord server also linked in the description that you can join, but with this build today, you'll be able to run around in master content even while underpowered, just melting completely everything using your solo subclass, because you'll have infinite melees, assuming you don't miss with them or fail to get kills regularly, and you'll be getting your super really fast as well. And I have used this build with all the different variants, such as using Shards of Galanor and the Star Eater scales in both Master Lost sectors, Master Nightfalls, as well as the King's Fall raid, and I have to say they did perform really well. I would personally stick to using this build in endgame PvE while at the recommended power level though, because with this build the way it is, you ideally want to get the final blow with your melee ability, but with the design we have in place, the build is more forgiving, so if you do miss with your melee, it's not a complete loss by wasting that knife. Now just briefly, a quick example of how you'll use this build in endgame PvE would be to first use your melee ability to get the final blow on a minor ad. Just using the ability will give you radiant, increasing your weapon's damage, and because you're radiant, you'll instantly get your melee straight back upon killing ads with it, which is also going to extend a timer of radiant due to specific fragments, and assuming you can always get the final blow with the ability, you'll then have infinite knives to throw. On the rare occasion that you do miss with your knife and you lose the ability, just dodge near an enemy to get that straight back, and then repeat. Dodging near enemies will give you a fresh melee ability and reduce the cooldown of all your abilities while spawning a void elemental well on your next weapon kill. Picking up that well will give you damage resistance, and then when you're near death, throw down a healing grenade to get restoration for infinite healing, and while you get solo weapon or melee kills, you extend the timer of both radiant and restoration, making it infinite for as long as there are ads to actually kill. Lastly, once you have your super, use it on a bunch of ads or bosses and expect up to 50% of that super energy refunded, while also getting the other 50% within around 30 seconds. You can either use this build with Shards of Galanor to get faster supers, or you can use it with Star Eaters to deal more damage, and we will go through that setup in just a moment. So starting with the loadout, your best bet is to use solar energy weapons, but it is only required if you want to extend the timer of restoration and radiant. Otherwise, you're free to use anything. The heavy weapon I'm using is actually Storm Chaser, but I'll use whatever benefits me the most in the activity I'm playing, along with my Arbalist, which will cover the anti-barriers. For the subclass, we use the Blade Barrage, which only got better with Solar 3.0 last season, and then we'll use a Gambler's Dodge with that to recharge our melee when dodging near enemies. You can use the new dodge that makes you radiant if you want to, although you will have to change a few things around, so for this build we're going to go with the Gambler's Dodge. For the melee ability, we have the knife trick, which will scorch targets on hit, and this is going to benefit us as well, which I'll get to in a second, but if you decide to use this throwing knife instead, which will recharge your dodge on precision final blows, then you'll want to run the other dodge to make you radiant, because in doing so, you can chain between the dodge and melee over and over, as the aspect will recharge your melee and class ability on each hit. Personally though, I found the Gambler's Dodge with the knife trick to be the most effective in endgame PvE, as the Gambler's Dodge is the backup throw if you don't get a final blow in Master or Grandmaster activities. We are going to be using a healing grenade with this build though, so that we can apply restoration to ourselves when we need it. For the aspects, we have Knock 'em Down. This will buff our Blade Barrage by giving us more projectiles and therefore letting us deal more damage, and we'll be able to recharge our melee when getting final blows with the melee while radiant, which will happen all the time, which gives us that infinite ability. We also have On Your Mark, but I'm only using this for the extra 3 fragment slots, as the other ability doesn't really pair well with this build in my opinion, but the fragments we have are Ember of Torches, so that our powered melee attacks make us radiant. That one is a must have, And then the Ember of Singeing, so our class ability recharges quicker when we scorch targets with the melee. Ember of Solace, so our radiant and restoration effects last longer. Ember of Searing, so defeated scorched targets give us melee energy. This one you can swap out if you want to. And then lastly, Ember of Imperium, so that our solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant effects. This is why you want to run solar weapons, so if you don't use this, then you can use anything you want, like an Ember of Beams or something like that. Moving to the exotic armor, we're using the Shards of Galanor, but your second choice is Star Eater Scales. Now Shards of Galanor will give us super energy back when the super ends upon getting kills and hits with it, while Star Eaters will give us increased damage by overcharging a super when picking up orbs. I'd use Shards if you want faster supers, which is ideal for activities like Master Nightfalls, Master Story content, and any regular content. And then I'd use Star Eaters when you're with a team that need massive damage due to a tanky boss, so this would be ideal in things like a raid or dungeon, and perhaps even a GM, but unless you're generating orbs for yourself with a Cypher mod, then I wouldn't use Star Eater Scales. Only with a team. Now for the main mods, we have Reaping Wellmaker. This will spawn in Void Elemental Wells when using your dodge and getting a weapon final blow. You can use Melee Wellmaker if you want to, but I feel it's a waste unless you're dedicated to improving weapon DPS and super regen by using a Font of Might and a Font of Wisdom. Otherwise go with Reaping Wellmaker so that we can get buffs with our Void Wells, which will firstly be extra damage resistance with the Well of Tenacity mod, and then extra class ability energy with the Well of Utility mod. The other two mods we're using are Powerful Friends for the plus 20 to mobility, and then Radiant Light for the plus 20 to strength. If you really want to, you can scrap these mods altogether and go with a Star Eater Exotic, and then an Energy Converter Charge of Light build, which would be in the Void armor. And that is if you want to get your super faster as if you were using Shards of Galanor, although you would need to invest into the Discipline stat for faster grenades. But the way we have this build set up, you ideally want to invest in mobility, strength and resilience. Now for the normal mods, starting with a helmet, we have Hands On for extra super energy on melee kills. This will help us a lot in getting our super faster, but you can use your ammo finder mod if you prefer. Then in the arms we have Inferno Whip so that we can stun unstoppables with our first ability, and then you'll dodge to get it back because we had to use it on a champ. But you can also use Focus and Strike if you want to for the extra class ability energy, and then your champion mod that you need. For the chest we have our damage resist mods, then in the legs we have our scavenger mod, and then lastly in the class we have some more ability cooldown mods. If getting your grenade back is more of a priority for the healing, then you can run double bomber instead in the solar armor. Now if you want to, you can use the golden gun with marksman and then a Celestial Nighthawk, but for me I found Blade Barrage to be the most efficient. But if you do want to use a golden gun build, then I do have one in my Order Season 17 playlist which still works this season just as good, but you will need to make a few minor changes. Now the last thing I want to go over are the weapon choices. So with this build you can use an Arbalist, this will cover your anti-barrier champions, or you can use a Bad Juju if you want to purely invest into faster supers, a Monte Carlo if you want guaranteed melee abilities infinitely without worrying about missing with them, a Traveler's Chosen for infinite abilities, or in the energy slot you have Skyburner's Oath, which is a good choice, which also scorches targets and is also a solo weapon. Could actually be really perfect with this build. You also have Ariana's Vow to stun barriers too, or a Tiku's Divination with an Overload bow mod this season, and all of these exotics are solar weapons too, so it is perfect for this build. But the heavy options are the Lament, this will stun barriers, and it's also a pretty good weapon for damage too. A Galley, nice option for ad clearing, or a Sleeper. There's honestly a lot of things you can do with this build and a lot of choices you can use. So overall this build to me has to be a 9 out of 10 in terms of how effective it is in endgame PvE. Not just because it has one of the best damaging supers in the game, but because it also has multiple variants, meaning you can use the exact same setup but with different exotics like Star Eaters or the Shards of Galanor. And the only thing you need to change is the armor. Honestly a really good build for PvE, so if you don't like Arc 3.0 this season, then this is a perfect replacement for you, and you should definitely give it a try. But guys, that is your newly updated Hunter build with the Blade Barrage for Solo 3.0 this season in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of Plunder. Next, as always, be sure to check out the full playlist of new and updated builds down below, as I do create them weekly here on the channel. But for now, leave your thoughts down below on this build, or tell me what your favourite solo build is for the Hunter this season. And whatever you get up to, have a good one, and I'll catch you all very soon for the next build video. Peace out guys.